That's intriguing, though, that it's like never. Because I'm like, I should study there.
Well, then how often do you clean it out?
I would say probably at least once a year. Where I see it, I don't know who these people are, I don't know their name. And especially if I'm like...
I don't add those people, so I don't need to like clean them out. If I don't add people I don't know.
Well, then you know what, there's another variable to consider. It's like, maybe I'm an Facebook acceptor. You know, that's actually sort of an interesting variable because you could probably have Facebook acceptors and Facebook rejectors, right?
I'm a rejecter.
I mean, Facebook, there's a lot of interesting questions here. Like, if someone sends you a friend request, you could be an acceptor where you're like, ooh, everyone wants to be my friend. Yay!
You can have Facebook and never use it.
You also have Facebook and never use it. I don't know what that would be like. I have a lot more time in my day. Alright, so anyway, what did it be? You actually find that, yeah.
What exactly is neocortex?
It's the outer part of the brain. So it's most developed in the humans. If you think neo is new, and the cortex is the outside, most highly developed part of the brain. Most people think it's most associated with the abilities that make us humans. So about 3. Y'all are in prime time to make friends, man. Y'all are in prime time to make friends.
So the neocortex varies between human to human.
No. It was looking at cross-species data. It's most associated with the higher things that make us human, but primates have neocortex. It allows for planning of behavior. It allows for stopping of behavior where you see something and you're like, oh, I'm so angry, and the neocortex goes, oh, it's probably not good to yell at that person. Other primates have this too. It's just most developed in humans. And we think of it as what helps us do our most humanly things. So that's a different class. All right, some biases that we show when interacting with others. There are 2 biases. So we're now moving further afield from biology and starting to look at some cultural factors. And we show some biases, and we probably don't think much about these unless they're violated, but one of them is reciprocity and another one is fairness. Because of the fire, we probably won't get through reciprocity. All right, so here's how this is going to work. Based on our primate and our cultural heritage, primates actually show a real interest in fairness too. It's actually cool to watch some experiments where primates seem to be really sensitive if they're being mistreated. Like you can give some primates, and they really love grapes, for example. Like, oh, look, we get grapes. And they also, you can reinforce them, say, with carrots. And they'll take carrots. They're not bothered. But if you give one primate grapes and another primate carrots, the ones who get the carrot will take it and throw it at you. Yeah, they're really sensitive. They're like, why are they getting, they can't say why are they getting grapes, but their body language is like, what the hell? So they're sensitive too. And so reciprocity and fairness. So we'll show some of this in action. So we expect others to reciprocate. If you want to think about this in the most simplest way, if I give you something, okay, I'm going to invite you to my party, guess what I expect next time you have a party? I'm going to get invited, or I'm going to send you a Christmas card, get one back. We also expect people to be fair. But this is actually really peculiar in the way we expect people to be fair. There's actually some really interesting experiments on the fairness one. So I'm going to give you examples of these. All right. Where does some of this come from? Now we see it in primates, but I'm going to try and move away from primates for a little bit and look at some cultural issues. So if we're interested in our cultural history, we share a cultural and linguistic heritage with a group of people known as the Indo-Europeans. Now, who are these people? Well, they lived about 5,000 years ago in the area around the Black Sea. We know that from the words they use in their language. They have words for certain plants and stuff, so forth. I know you're thinking to yourself, what does the Black Sea look like? There you go. And these people lived around that area about 5,000 years ago. And they gave us many, many things in our cultural heritage and linguistic heritage. And linguistics is what I'm going to focus on today. And what we can do is we can say, well, why why do we say these people gave us cultural linguistic stuff? Because as it turns out, the Indo-Europeans spread out from the Black Sea and they gave us nearly every Western language comes from them. So they lived in this area and they spread out, and nearly every Western European language comes from them, and also many Indian languages come from them, the Indo-European. So it's sort of intriguing that nearly every Western language shares its root in this one linguistic family. English, German, Celtic, and so forth. Basque does it, though, for reasons that I don't know. Hungarian doesn't. That's another area of expertise. But it's kind of intriguing that all of these languages, Greek, Latin, Sanskrit, all of them share this linguistic heritage from the Indo-Europeans. And you can take a course in Indo-European linguistics, but for today, one of the interesting things is they seem to have some sort of ritualized gift exchange. That it was very, very important to Indo-Europeans that you gave and you accepted gifts. And we've been able to, like I did the work, linguistic anthropologists have been able to reconstruct many, many words, and you can buy dictionaries of Indo-European. I know you're just stoked. Calvert Watkins, if you're curious, he does one. He wrote a book, I believe it was Calvert Watkins, wrote a book on the horse and the wheel, where he was like trying to discuss. And there was one on Indo-European poetry, which that was some tough slogging. It was like this thick. It was reconstructed Indo-European poems, so it was like, here's what we think it would have read. Like, that's fascinating. But I think the horse and the wheel, I think that's Calvert Watkins. It's most likely him. But anyway, there's a word hosti. And the word hosti means someone who has reciprocal obligations reciprocal duties of hospitality. And so we can take this word hosti, and it seems to have something to do with hospitality. And the way linguistic anthropologists have worked with this word is, they say, well, if there's going to be gifts, there has to be a giver and a receiver, right? So you've got to have, I don't know why this is coming this way. You've got to have a receiver of the gifts, and you've got to have a giver of the gifts. And for reasons outside the scope of this course, words very often get changed, the sounds of the words get changed, but in this case, we can actually reconstruct, even in English, roots that come from hosti. So, the word guest comes out of this, the word guest comes out of this. Our English word guest is directly related to this word hosti. On the giver side, what word obviously comes from this? Hosti. Host. The word host comes from this. There are other words too that come from this. Hostile. It's sort of intriguing that hostile would come from this root, but if you think of it, if you are a stranger, you might either be friendly and a guest, or you might be hostile. So all of these words come from this one root. And so what you can do is you can say, okay, there's this word, it seems to matter, and then you look for any documentary evidence. And when you actually look for documentary evidence, you find lots of it. There's a word that if you take Greek for longer than about 3 seconds, there's a word xenia that shows up in the Iliad, it shows up in the Odyssey, and it's a word that means guest-host relationship. You actually know this word, xenia, you just don't know that you know it. If I am really scared of foreigners, really hate them, what am I? I'm xenophobic. Guess where the word xeno comes from? It comes from it comes from the same root. So xenophobic is the fear of strangers, which ultimately derives its etymological origins from this hosti root. Now, this xenia, this guest-host relationship, could last for generations. And there's many, many examples of this in literature. So for the Greeks and for many other cultures, it was absolutely essential to do this gift exchange thing. I just picked the Greeks because they are one of the big people for our cultural legacy. So if you read the Iliad, for example, you find the Trojan War, and you find that the Greeks and the Trojans go to battle, and you're given some hints, but it's not really mentioned in the text, but you're given some suggestion that something happened involving one of the Greek leaders, a guy named Menelaus, and a guy named Paris. And what seems to have happened is that Paris was promised the most beautiful woman in the world, comes over to Greece to find the most beautiful woman in the world who's married. Her name is what? Helen, right? She was married to Menelaus, stays with Menelaus for a week, and then goes and takes Helen back with him. Well, if there's ever going to be a violation of Xenia, guest-host relationship, wouldn't stealing someone's wife rank, sort of way up there? Hey, why don't you come visit me for the weekend? Oh, where'd my girlfriend go, right? Right? And if you actually read the ancient sources, you find they actually mention this violation of Xenia being one of the causes, and it's part of Zeus's anger. He's like, whoa, you violated something major here. So this isn't just a sort of abstract word. They deeply believed in Xenia. The Odyssey, I think, Homer's sequel to the Iliad, really gives a great example of this too. If you ever read the Iliad and the Odyssey, they'll have these wonderful scenes. The Iliad will have more of them. And in the Iliad, the two warriors will get there, and they'll go to battle, and before they battle, they tell each other who they are. One's like, oh, my name is, and then 5 pages of their ancestry, right? So Glaucus here, goes to battle Diomedes, and before they battle, Diomedes has to go, I want you to know who you're going to kill, right? Or who is going to kill you? And my name is Diomedes. I am blah, 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 blah. And the guy's like, oh, that's wonderful. And then there's a battle going on around them. And Glaucus is like, oh, fascinating. Well, in this particular story, this particular scene, rather, Glaucus and Diomedes, they get ready to do battle with each other, and they realize there's Xenia. They realize that their grandfathers had given gifts to each other. So instead of fighting, they actually exchange gifts on the battlefield and go kill other people. So, and the Greeks didn't think this was weird at all. They're like, well, of course that's what would happen. There's Xenia. In the Odyssey, Homer's sequel to this, Xenia is equated with civilization itself. There's a beautiful passage where Odysseus washes up on... Have you ever read the Odyssey? It's an awesome book, right? It's the trials of Odysseus getting home from the Trojan War. And there's a wonderful scene where Odysseus washes up on the island of the Phaeacians. I'll just give you this right here. He wakes up on the island of the Phaeacians and he goes, what are the people who live here? Are they violent and savage and without justice? Or, and the Greek here is, you want to take a guess? Xenia. Are they Xenia? I mean, Xenia itself is equated with civilization. He's like, I don't know who these people are. Are they going to kill me? Or do they show civilization, and civilization being Xenia? Well, it isn't just the Greeks. The Greeks aren't the only people who show this. You find this in almost every Indo-European culture. You find it in Indian cultures, Arabic cultures, and in many Arabic cultures, it's almost stronger than this. They would take you in, and they would even defend you against outsiders going, this is our guest host. So reciprocity is deeply seated in our culture. Anthropologists argue there's at least 2 types of reciprocity that are worth distinguishing between, and you've often been victims or recipients of each kind of reciprocity. There's something known as